The key turned in the lock, a soft click in the quiet hallway. Ethan pushed the door open, dropping his briefcase on the entryway table with a tired sigh. The air smelled of lemon polish and something baking, cinnamon maybe. Home. In the living room, the late afternoon sun slanted across the hardwood floors, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Liam was on the floor, his back a tense line, a sheen of sweat on his bare skin. His arms trembled slightly. "Come on, Liam." 10 more seconds, Ethan said. His own voice strained as he held the position beside him. Liam groaned, collapsing onto the plush rug. "Can't, Ethan. Seriously, I'm done. My arms are jelly." Ethan let himself drop down, breathing hard. He wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. "That's what you said 5 minutes ago. No quitting." We finished the set. This was their routine now. Whenever the plot demanded a scene of illicit passion with the cheerful, younger neighbor, Ethan substituted furious, exhausting workouts. Push-ups, planks, burpees. Anything to avoid the actual script. He knew, according to the story whispering in the back of his mind, that his husband Oliver should be listening outside. His heart breaking at the sounds of exertion he'd mistake for something else. Ethan called out, making his voice carry, lacing it with a false, intimate warmth. "One more round? For me?" On the floor, Liam groaned again, pushing himself up on shaking arms. "You're a demon." "Fine. One more. Then I'm ordering a pizza and you're paying." Later, after Liam had limped out, Ethan lay sprawled on the rug, muscles singing. The front door opened again softly. He didn't move. Oliver walked in, the picture of domestic serenity. He wore a soft cashmere sweater the color of cream, his hair neatly styled. In one hand, he held a reusable grocery bag full of fresh produce. He looked, as always, perfectly put together. "There you are," Oliver said, his voice a gentle murmur. He mentioned he'd tried calling a few times. Ethan kept his gaze on the ceiling, affecting a cool disinterest. He hadn't been available to talk, he stated flatly. He was hungry now, he added, the order for dinner delivered like a command. Oliver set the bag down and approached. Ethan took the opportunity to tug open the collar of his loose shirt, revealing the angry red marks just above his collarbone. He'd pinched the skin himself earlier, wincing at the sharp pain. A necessary prop. Oliver's eyes drifted to the marks. He simply asked, his tone unchanged, if Ethan had already showered. Ethan confirmed he had, adding that Liam had been over. He implied it had been a strenuous visit, leaving him tired and sweaty. He watched Oliver's face, waiting for the flicker of hurt, the quiet anger. Instead, Oliver knelt. His fingers were warm as they circled Ethan's ankle. He muttered something about cold feet before standing to fetch thick socks from the hallway closet. He insisted, with a gentle firmness, that Ethan shouldn't walk barefoot on the cool floors. A flash of frustration made Ethan sit up. He emphasized Liam's name again, pointing out it was the same Liam who was always hanging around. Shouldn't that mean something? Shouldn't it bother him? Oliver just looked confused, his brow furrowing slightly. He didn't see why Liam's visit was noteworthy. Ethan fell back onto the rug, exasperated. The man was oblivious, a devoted partner tending to a spouse who was practically broadcasting infidelity from the rooftop. That night, in the dark of their bedroom, Ethan found himself drifting off, his leg thrown casually over Oliver's. Sleep was nearly upon him when he felt the shift in the bed. Oliver turned, gathering Ethan close. The kiss was soft, then searching, a hint of mint and warmth. For a dizzying second, Ethan forgot to resist. He kissed back. The response was immediate. Oliver's breath hitched, and the hand resting on Ethan's hip slid beneath the fabric of his t-shirt, leaving a trail of heat. His voice was a low vibration against Ethan's ear, asking, pleading for more. The touch at the waistband of Ethan's sleep pants, the cool air on his skin, shocked him back to reality. He pushed Oliver's hand away, scrambling back against the headboard. He couldn't. He wasn't interested. He was tired. The rejections tumbled out, sharp and final. Oliver stared, his eyes dark in the shadows. His gaze dipped pointedly, and he whispered a soft, knowing observation about Ethan's apparent state. Ethan looked down, his face heating. His body was a traitor. He shoved Oliver back, yanking his pants up, his heart hammering. He repeated that he was exhausted and had no interest. He told Oliver to deal with it himself. He turned over, presenting his back, a wall of feigned indifference. A soft sigh. The bed dipped again as Oliver rose, padding quietly to the bathroom. The shower started. Ethan lay rigid, listening to the water run. He had been doing this for a year, keeping Oliver at arm's length, playing the part of the satiated, indifferent husband. It was necessary, a means to an end. The whispering voice in his head, the one he called the guide, had promised him. Complete the story, gather the points, and he could go home, back to where he belonged. But sometimes, like when Oliver silently ate the leftovers from Ethan's plate without a second thought, or when he remembered Ethan's favorite brand of coffee, the act felt heavier. The next day at the office was a fog of fatigue. After a marathon meeting, Ethan retreated to his private office, sinking into the leather chair. He was almost asleep when a touch startled him. Fingers trailed from his neck down his chest. He blinked open blurry eyes. His assistant, Caleb, was leaning over him, loosening his own tie. His expression was intense, focused. The guide piped up in his mind, dry and unhelpful, noting that this was simply another plot beat, another attempted seduction. Caleb moved closer, his breath warm. He confessed his feelings, his voice a low hum. He claimed Ethan had shown interest, had given him signals. He knew about the marriage, he said, but for Ethan, he was willing to make compromises. Ethan's mind recoiled. The original story was brazen, but this was aggressive. How was he supposed to maintain the charade of an affair without actually having one? The mental gymnastics were giving him a headache. He silently raged at the guide, blaming it for dropping him into this chaotic, emotionally fraught narrative. Seeing Ethan frozen, Caleb took it as encouragement. He sank to one knee, his hand moving toward Ethan's belt. Panic shot through Ethan. He bolted upright, knocking over a half-full mug of cold coffee. The dark liquid splashed across his white dress shirt, soaking through instantly. "Mr. Ward." Caleb sprang up, grabbing a handful of tissues and dabbing clumsily at the stain, his hands wandering. Ethan batted them away, retreating behind his desk, a mess of nerves and wet fabric. This was not going to plan. The office door swung open. Oliver stood there, holding a stainless steel lunch container. His gaze swept the scene. The disheveled, coffee-soaked Ethan, the flushed Caleb with his hands still outstretched, the intimate chaos of the small space. For a long moment, Oliver said nothing. Then a small, polite smile touched his lips. He remarked on the mess, asking Ethan how he'd managed to spill coffee everywhere. He stepped forward, smoothly inserting himself between Ethan and Caleb. His fingers began buttoning Ethan's ruined shirt. He addressed Caleb, calling him overeager and suggesting he leave the cleanup to him. His tone was pleasant, but his eyes held a quiet, unyielding authority. Flustered, Caleb mumbled an apology and fled. Alone, Oliver helped Ethan change into a clean shirt from the closet, his movements efficient and gentle. He handed Ethan chopsticks and began gathering the shattered pieces of the mug from the floor. Ethan tried to explain, to shape the incident into the betrayal it was meant to be. He stammered about Caleb, about what had just happened. Oliver simply acknowledged he'd seen. He'd seen Caleb trying to help with the spill. The young man was impulsive, he noted. He'd remind him to be more careful. He was just glad, he murmured, focusing on the broken ceramic, that the coffee hadn't been hot. The calm was unnerving. Ethan saw the slight tremor in Oliver's fingers as he picked up a shard. He was hurt. He was just hiding it, burying it under a mountain of care and concern. A pang of guilt, sharp and unexpected, twisted in Ethan's gut. He'd played these roles before, the villain, the cad. He was good at it. Detached. Why did Oliver make it feel different? A few days later, a voice message from Oliver played on his phone. The voice was soft, slightly congested, reminding him to wear his jacket because the office faced the wind. He was making soup for dinner. Ethan frowned, listening to the pronounced nasal tone. The man was getting sick while worrying about Ethan's comfort. Irritated, or something close to it, Ethan grabbed a packet of cold medicine from his desk and his own coat. He drove toward the art gallery where Oliver worked. He practiced his lines in the car. He'd be curt, dismissive. He'd say he was in the neighborhood on business, that he didn't want Oliver's germs, that the gesture meant nothing. He spotted Oliver before he reached the gallery. He was emerging from a boutique coffee shop. And he wasn't alone. Professor Alistair Reed was with him, tall and distinguished in a tweed jacket. The man from the story, the one meant to pick up the pieces. Alistair said something, smiling. Oliver glanced at his own hands and laughed. A gentle, familiar sound that now struck Ethan like a physical blow. Alistair started to remove his own coat, offering it. Oliver shook his head, refusing politely. They looked right together. Harmonious. The guide chimed in, excited. This was progress. Key characters interacting. The plot was advancing. Ethan should be pleased. Home was closer than ever. Ethan asked, his mental voice quiet, if Oliver would be happy, in the end. The guide seemed surprised by the question. Of course he would be. He'd move on from Ethan's shadow, embrace his true match, find perfect happiness. Wasn't that the point? Ethan watched them a moment longer. Then he turned, got back in his car, and drove away. The rehearsed lines died unspoken. He threw himself into the role of the neglectful husband with renewed, grim determination. He stayed out late. He was short on the phone. When, after days of this, Oliver came to the office looking weary but composed, asking to talk, Ethan buried his feelings under a layer of manufactured contempt. He was busy. He snapped that Oliver hadn't done anything wrong. He was just tired of the routine, tired of the same face every day. He needed space. He saw the color drain from Oliver's face. Oliver took a step closer, his voice dropping to a whisper, asking what he could change. Ethan pushed him back, the anger now real, fueled by a painful, confusing protectiveness. Why didn't he get angry? Why didn't he have a spine? He told him he was bored. He was sick of the sight of him. Oliver flinched as if struck. He finished Ethan's thought for him, calling himself pathetic. He admitted he loved Ethan too much, that he'd chosen to ignore the signs, to pretend. His eyes held a complex storm of emotions. Hurt, resignation, and something else Ethan couldn't name, before he turned and left. The guide sounded wary, noting that Oliver's reactions were deviating from the expected script. It advised caution. Caution, right? The final act was set at a downtown blues bar called the Midnight Hour. The guide explained the crucial beat. A passionate, public encounter with the fiery lead singer, Jax, witnessed and documented by Alistair. The evidence would be sent to Oliver. It would be the last straw. Ethan sat at the bar, letting the music and the whiskey blur the edges of his awareness. Jax, all leather and smoldering looks, eventually slid onto the stool next to him. His hand found Ethan's thigh. His invitation was blatant. Ethan's skin crawled, but he forced a smile, pulling Jax closer, whispering a crude agreement. In his peripheral vision, he saw Alistair in a booth, phone held discreetly. The flash was invisible, but the deed was done. The photos were sent. A strange emptiness hollowed him out. It was done. Jax, impatient, suggested they find some privacy. Nausea rose in Ethan's throat. He maneuvered Jax toward a back hallway, making it look like eager passion. He just needed to get him into the green room, let him pass out, play a recording, A plan formed through a haze of alcohol and despair. He pushed Jax into the dim room, and then the door slammed open. Oliver stood framed in the doorway, his hair disheveled, his chest rising and falling rapidly. His gaze, usually so soft, was hard and dark as it swept over Jax and then locked onto Ethan. The guide expressed confusion. This wasn't in the scene. Oliver didn't give them time to react. He crossed the room in 3 strides, his grip like iron on Ethan's wrist, and hauled him out. Jax started to protest, but one venomous look from Oliver silenced him. Ethan was dragged through the crowd, shoved into the passenger seat of their car. The engine roared to life. Oliver's voice was dangerously calm. He'd arrived just in time, it seemed. He wondered if Ethan found Jax more exciting, since he was so clearly uninterested in Oliver. Ethan, raw and defensive, leaned into the role. He confirmed he was exactly what Oliver saw. A lost cause. He suggested divorce. He offered to give everything away. The car screeched to a halt. Oliver turned slowly. The comm shattered. "You're asking me for a divorce?" The air in the car crackled with suppressed violence. Oliver trembled, his forehead pressing into the steering wheel. He took several deep, ragged breaths. When he looked up, the storm had passed, leaving an eerie stillness. He stated flatly that he needed a driver. He wasn't fit to operate the vehicle. The silence that followed in the days after was the most terrifying thing Ethan had ever experienced. Oliver asked no questions. He expressed no anger. The guide was initially alarmed but then optimistic. This was the precursor to heartbreak, it said. The emotional death before the rebirth with Alistair. The famous scene was imminent. The famous scene. Ethan drank wine at the dining table that night, watching Oliver move around the candlelit room, a small, genuine smile on his face. He'd asked Ethan to come home early. He had something to say. This was it. The celebration of his impending freedom. Ethan drank to drown the acid jealousy burning his stomach. He drank until the room wavered. He slurred a promise that he'd sleep soundly tonight. He wouldn't wake up. He wouldn't disturb anything. Oliver's smile widened. He said that was perfect. He took Ethan's glass, finished the last swallow himself, then leaned in. His kiss was possessive, forceful. He parted Ethan's lips, sharing the wine. He pulled back just enough to whisper against Ethan's mouth. He'd added something special to the drink. Something to ensure cooperation. He'd grown tired of Ethan's rebellious streak. The guide began frantically signaling a narrative breach. Ethan's world tilted. He was being guided not to the bedroom, but to a guest room he rarely used. The click of a thin, elegant chain being secured around his wrist finally made the situation clear. Oliver was not following the script. Oliver had rewritten it entirely. The next few hours were a blur of sensation and shock. Oliver was everywhere, his touch alternating between worship and punishment, branding Ethan with marks and whispered words. He spoke of patience, of watching, of a desperation so deep it had curdled into this beautiful, terrifying madness. He asked how Ethan could even think of leaving him. Ethan should have called for the guide to intervene, to stun Oliver, to stop this. But seeing the raw, red-rimmed eyes, hearing the broken plea not to be hated, he found he couldn't. He was caught in the whirlwind. When Oliver, moving within him, demanded to know if he was loved, Ethan finally broke. He gave the answer, then the name, then the endearment. He confessed everything. Afterward, he dreamed, not of this world, but of his own. His 19th birthday, the car ride home, the desperate parents, the speeding van, the choice to follow, the crash. Then the long darkness, the voices of his family, the deal with the guide, the endless roles played in distant worlds, all to earn his way back to that hospital bed. He woke crying. Oliver was there, holding him, asking about the nightmare. Ethan clung to him, the truth a weight in his chest. The guide confirmed the worst. The story had collapsed. Oliver would not leave. The task was a failure. The points were forfeit. The way home was closed. The guide fell silent. For good, it seemed. The hope that had fueled Ethan for years drained away, leaving a hollow shell. He moved through the days like a ghost. Food lost its taste. He grew thin. One night, after a bout of sickness, Oliver held him, apologies falling like rain against his skin. He promised to do anything, to be anything, if only Ethan would be happy again. Ethan had no answer. Then, one ordinary day, Oliver became vividly, painfully alive. He took Ethan to the park, to a movie, to the store. He cooked a feast. That night, his lovemaking was a frantic, clinging thing, a goodbye masquerading as hello. He begged Ethan to remember him. He confessed to hidden cameras, to a jealous, possessive fear. He spoke of a love that was selfish and all-consuming. As a strange lethargy pulled Ethan under, he grasped at Oliver, demanding to know what was happening. Oliver only kissed him, a tear tracing a path down his own cheek. His final words were a declaration of love, and a plea not to be forgotten. The light was blinding. He was staring at a white ceiling tile. Machines beeped softly. A face swam into view. His mother's older, etched with lines of grief and now, dawning joy. Then his father. His brother, Leo. There was shouting, crying, the hurried footsteps of medical staff. He was back. He was in his own body, in his own world. Rehabilitation was a slow, grinding process. He learned to walk again, to speak without slurring. His family surrounded him with love. Life resumed. He finished his degree. He joined the family business. He moved into a sleek apartment with a wide balcony. He functioned, but a part of him remained in that other place with that other man. He would reach out in the night to an empty space. He would taste a sauce and feel a phantom ache. The memories were too detailed, too painful to be a dream. His brother Leo was the only one he told, one evening when pressed about moving out. He admitted quietly that his preferences had changed during his long sleep. He'd met someone in a way, someone unforgettable. Leo looked heartbroken, insisting it had all been a coma dream, a trauma narrative. He urged Ethan not to be trapped by it. Ethan just shook his head. He wasn't trapped. He was just waiting, or mourning. He wasn't sure which. One evening, walking home from the market, a bag of groceries in his arm, the familiar, long-absent voice chimed in his mind. It's been a while. Ethan stopped dead on the sidewalk. Turn around. He turned, slowly, the setting sun dazzling his eyes. He stood there, just a few paces away, under the canopy of a flowering dogwood. He looked a little older, a little more worn, but his eyes were the same. He was real. The guide's voice was faint, an echo. It explained that there was an alternative currency, a one-way ticket purchased with everything he had. Oliver took a step forward, then another, crossing the space between worlds. His smile was tentative, edged with a fear Ethan knew all too well. He opened his arms. If Ethan didn't want him, he remarked softly, he would be truly lost. Ethan didn't run. He crossed the final distance in a rush, the grocery bag falling forgotten. He collided with him, arms locking around his waist, face buried in the familiar shoulder. He shook his head, tears soaking into the fabric of Oliver's shirt. He could never forget. Oliver held him tight, his own relief a palpable tremor. He kissed Ethan's temple, his cheek, his lips. His voice was a warm breath against Ethan's skin. Good. My Ethan. I'm here now. The sunset wrapped around them, fusing their shadow into one long, unbroken line on the pavement.